This is Nagios as a PC health monitor. Please welcome Sean Falzon.
Thank you. So I guess the joke that you got lost to track one might have already been said, but yeah, thank you all for attending. I actually did not think that the entire room would be full. I think we have like 4 free seats, so that's nice. So Sean Falzon, as you were told, it's my email. It's not my Twitter. That's Rob's Twitter. Little joke. I just started using Twitter the other day when the conference started, and I tweeted a heap of stuff. Did not realise my tweets were all private. So Rob helped me out. He uses Twitter. If you want to tweet people, tweet to Rob. He'll answer. So who am I? I'm IT Operations Manager at a company called Southern Rural Water. Southern Rural Water is a wholly government-owned corporation. We handle the licensing of groundwater and surface water extractions in the lower half of Victoria in Australia. And we also operate 3 major dams, and we also manage 3 irrigation districts. So those of you who are from areas that do open channel irrigation, that's what we do primarily, is 1/2 of our business. So a bit more about where I'm from. This is a map of the area that my company covers. We're responsible for that area. Each of the green ticks is an office that we operate, and the red cross is our managed wireless wide area network in 1 irrigation district. And this has obviously come out of Nagios. It's a good example of the sort of things that we do with Nagios. We have the speckled area is actually a rainfall location. We've obviously had correlations between storms and communications issues. So we track that across Nagios, and we give this screen a lot of work, because as soon as we have a fault, we can see if there's a storm in the area. Oh yeah, this is actually where I am from, the yellow dot, which is there. So today we'll be covering the journey, like how we got to where we are, how we, IT, use Nagios, and how the business uses it, so non-IT people. Why we started monitoring the end user computers, how we monitor them now, and the lessons that we've learnt from the mistakes we've made. How we monitor, did that one already? What we're getting out of it now, and how customer satisfaction is a driver for a high performance culture. So how do we use Nagios? So we obviously use it for monitoring our core infrastructure, our servers, our switches, our SANs, the temperature in the server rooms, the office temperature, so the temperature for people's cubicles, our wireless communications network, which we use to operate our SCADA systems. We have integration with Asterisk for notifications, so it calls people on their cell phones, reads out the message instead of relying on SMS, which helps with on-call schedules. And we have integration with Service Desk Plus, which is the help desk system that we use for all our end user complaints about their PCs. So the business knows Nagios. We give operators of the irrigation district pretty extensive access to Nagios, and they use that to see the status of the communications network to help fault find any SCADA issues that they may have. So it's important to know the business knows we have a monitoring technology deployed across our systems. This is a screenshot of the typical Nagios screen that our end users would be able to see. And there's quite a number of people who access this system, including external contractors and software vendors. So the vendor of our SCADA system, who is responsible for the last leg of the radio link, they can come to this screen and see the performance of all these links. And I've just pressed the wrong button. And this is obviously not live, but if they hovered over these boxes, they would see the current jitter status of that link, and they can see if the primary link is up and the backup link. And it says NextG for, I think, maybe just Simon in the room would understand that NextG is a mobile phone network, 21 megabit network in our area. So That's the backup link that we use, and the primary link is a mixture of Canopy and NanoBridge equipment. So we even use it to solve occupational health and safety issues. Not IT-related OHS issues, but general office issues. This is a screen that the office staff would typically go to. One of the main complaints that office staff have had about OHS in the office is that the office is too hot and too cold at certain times of the day. The company spent a fortune putting new heating and cooling systems into the office, and they still complained. We deployed sensors throughout the office where these numbers are. Well, that's the server room, so let's not worry about that one too much. But the sensors reported back what the temperature was in those areas, and the staff were able to go to the system and see at any time of the day what the current temperature was, hover over the number, and it would plot the graph showing what the temperature was over time. They could click on it and get more information if they wanted to. This was well received by all the staff, and they said, oh, geez, you know, your IT team has a great monitoring system, and this is excellent. It helped us identify there was actually issues with the thermostats. They were programmed wrong, and they were turning off. They were not in a very economical mode, and we were able to reprogram them all. And we have a nice, consistent, this is 23 degrees Celsius. If anyone thinks that's really cold, it's actually quite nice and warm. It's probably the same as this room. And it's consistent across the office, and these are cubicle barriers, so they cause some problems with the airflow. But what we all really came here for is PC monitoring. So what have we done so far? So initially we had 2 PCs, desktop PCs used by what we call our planners. They're the 2 operators that take the orders from the customers and then set in the system when the water will be released from the dam, travel down the channel, exit out of either a manual outlet or an automated outlet controlled by SCADA, and then enter the farmer's property. This application is obviously incredibly complex, has a lot of moving pieces. It's written in Java. For those Java programmers here, I'm sorry, but it does use a lot of memory. And it had a lot of performance issues when our irrigation district was running at full steam. The software vendor said, how old is your computer? And the operator talks to the software vendor, says, oh, I think it's quite old. The software vendor says, oh, it must be the CPU and memory. Maybe you need a faster CPU and you need more memory. No real checks done here, didn't find out what CPU it was, didn't find out how much RAM was there, but it must be their problem. So we install Nagios. So I've pretty much covered why here, but we'll go a little bit more into it. So I guess why do we want to cover the whole PC fleet? So yes, we had a problem with these 2 computers. We wanted to identify if the problem was our hardware or software. We identified it was the software. So why do we want to do the entire fleet? Every help desk request that I see where someone complains that their computer is running slow generally relates back to something using a lot of CPU or a lot of memory. Almost always that's resolved by identifying what the application is, using a lot of memory or CPU, and fixing the issue, reinstalling the application, fixing the configuration, whatever it might be. It's very rare that it is a case that you need a new PC because your PC is running slow. Especially our fleet is all less than 3 years old. So we want to monitor the whole fleet. Part of that as well also is that my directive is to try and save money. So if we can make the life of PCs go longer, that'd be great. So how are we going to do this? We're going to do this by using a different approach to what we used for the current server monitoring. So we use NSClient++, and we're going to continue to use NSClient++, but we don't want to use active checks. The Nagios server shouldn't be going out and trying to fetch information off the PCs because most of our fleet are tablets or notebooks or other mobile devices, not fixed desktops. We have maybe 6 fixed desktops out of a fleet of 165 computers. So we'll use passive checks. Passive checks on NSClient++ run on a schedule. You can set the schedule on the machine as to whatever you want. So we use a 5-minute schedule at the moment, And it's probably a little bit too aggressive, and we're probably going to taper that back to a 30-minute or an hour window. But with the mobile fleet, we're not sure if they're going to be on the network or off the network. So the 5-minute schedule gives us a bit of surety that the information isn't going to get back. So, typical end user complaint. My PC is slow, but the time IT support gets a chance to look at the problem, it has gone away. And this is what they look like. So, our staff work whatever hours they want, and administration staff, not IT staff, and some IT staff too, especially me. The problem is that our help desk operates between 8 a.m. and 4:45 p.m. Outside of that, there's no IT people around. There's no one on call for these sorts of problems. On-call staff are there for major system problems. So at 7:30 in the morning, I'm quite often still in bed, and people have the problem. They don't bother calling, they don't bother logging a help desk ticket, they just put up with it. So we put the Nagios Monitoring in, and we're able to see, if this moves forward, there we go. So, difficulty, yeah. So we're able to see the memory and CPU over time. I sort of covered that on an earlier slide, so I'll just skip forward. So, we can go and do a real improvement in our customer service. So as a business, we're trying to, we have a strategic goal of improving customer control and convenience. That's something that company is trying to do for our customers as a whole. And our IT support team sees the internal customers, that is the normal staff within the business, the admin staff, the field staff, management, and the board as our internal customers. And we want to increase their satisfaction with our service, but we see that their usual reason to come to us is because they have a problem, and they're initially in a bad state of mind because their computer's not working, they've got deadlines, they want something fixed. So they had a bad experience before they get to us. It's not our fault, we haven't created their problems occurred because of any number of reasons, but they associate our IT staff, or help desk people at least, with bad experiences. Bad experiences because something went wrong. So we're going to fix that. We're going to turn everything on its head and say, well, let's monitor the PCs, identify those people who have high memory usage and high CPU usage, contact them before they contact us and say, hey, notice that your PC's been using a lot of memory lately. Have you been doing something differently? And they might say, yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff in PowerPoint. We'll say, okay, well, that's pretty typical. It uses a fair bit of memory, so that's fine. Well, they might say, no, I've been doing nothing. And we look at the times when it happens. It might be during lunch breaks. Say, oh, it was between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. What were you doing then? They say, well, I was at the cafe having lunch. Okay, that's odd. Did you leave anything running on your PC at the time? No, I just had my email open and that's it. We investigate the issue and we found, well, there was a scheduled task in the SOE that was meant to do a bit of a update check or something. We use Lenovo computers, so it's one of these Think Vantage technologies. And for some reason, all of a sudden it had decided to start using a lot of memory and a lot of CPU and never actually finishing its job. So we identified a problem that people were having that they didn't know. And we investigated it further and we find, oh, well, everyone apparently in this work group is having the same problem. It's part of the SOE. Some people don't really experience it because it usually happens around lunchtime because it was scheduled to start so many hours after I turned the PC on. So it usually coincided with lunchtime. And other people just put up with it. No one had complained. So we applied a fix and removed it off everyone's computers and the problem went away. When we did the fix, we let people know that we were fixing the problem. We said, oh, we see you've had this problem with your computer. Has it been running slow around about 11 a.m. through to 2 p.m? Yeah, it has. Okay, well, we're going to fix that. Some people said, oh, no, please, that's when I take lunch. But others were very grateful. So we did that. So why do we use Nagios? Why not use any number of products out there? We're a Lenovo customer, and I'm sure they would love us to use something that they would sell. But Nagios Core, and XI, but Nagios Core, which is what we use, its functionality is listed on the website as visibility, awareness, remediation, and reporting. So, if this thing works again. Yep. So visibility. I can't see the problem, we can't fix it. And I get this with my vehicle. I was actually at my Subaru dealer having my car fixed for the 4th time in the year because my headlights kept on stopping working for no reason. But every time I took it in there, they said, oh, it's working now. We can't fix it if we can't reproduce the problem. So I'd replace the light bulbs and the problem wouldn't go away. So yeah, same thing with IT, isn't it? You can't fix a problem if you can't see it. If you can't see a log entry or anything, you cannot manage it. So Nagios, even though we might not have caught it when it happened, would have the history of it. So awareness. Is the issue only affecting one person or is it affecting everyone? Same thing with the car. Was every Subaru Liberty driver in Australia having this headlight problem? Was it just people who bought the car the month that I bought the car? Or was it just me? If Subaru identified that it was a big problem, they would put a recall out. They would notify all the drivers of the vehicle that there was a problem with the headlights and they would get them all back in and complimentary fix the problem. We should do the same thing in IT. So remediation. We know there's a problem, let's fix it. So we do it a couple of different ways. You could use an event handler. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't trust event handlers. But you could if you wanted to. I'm sure you could get some Nagios bloopers next year if people do event handlers on end user PCs. But one of the things that we do, obviously, we link to our help desk system. So we can create a help desk ticket for the end user if it sees high CPU usage over a 2-hour period. It's pretty unlikely that would be normal. So why not create a help desk ticket? Then the help desk staff would know and they'd have a job. If they don't fix it, it shows up on SLA report in the help desk system. Reporting. Reporting is key to making decisions. I guess when we're faced with budget cuts, is what I am. If I want to make PCs last for 4 years, I need to know whose PCs need to be replaced and whose PCs could survive longer. Look at the memory usage on this computer here. I don't know if you can all see that properly, but the name of the machine here might indicate whose this is. And this person uses over 80% of their physical memory through this whole time period. And it wasn't a long time period, it was only a couple of hours. And they might have had PowerPoint open the whole time trying to get this presentation done. But it shows that, yeah, I use a lot of my memory. So I'm a 64-bit system. I've got 4 gig. Maybe I need 6, maybe I need 8. It's a decision that we can now back up with some actual data. So what's required to do this? I guess originally when I wrote this, I had all these config screens and a lot of information. I took that out because I guess my configs that I wrote won't suit everyone. And there's plenty of great guides online. And if you do want configs, email me. I'm happy to share. But you need a Nagios installation, either XI or Core. You need a compatible client in your PC. NSClient++, which is what we use. NCPA will work as well. I haven't used it myself, so I can't talk too much about how the checks would work, but I'm positive it works. I've read some great documents. I think there was even a webcast just a couple of weeks ago talking about doing passive checks with NCPA. And there's other clients as well. NCPA, consequently, on the Mac would work as well. If you do have a Mac, you can't use NSClient++. So this originally had a lot of configuration, and I scaled it back just to the idea behind it. So an example of Nagios Core, you would enable the passive reporting coming in. You configure a host template, and we configure it with these services: CPU, disk, and memory. Disk was something that we ummed and ahed about whether or not we should include it. We already monitored disk usage with our antivirus software. And memory, obviously, is something we really wanted. And just make sure that they're configured to never be actively checked. When we first tried deploying this to everyone's computers, I had it on my computer, and I had my computer at work for a few days. And then I undocked it, put it in my bag, hopped in my car, went to the supermarket. I'm in the supermarket, my phone rings. Oh, it's the office. Answer it, and I hear the robotic voice. We have a problem. Reads out the problem. My PC is offline. It was configured to actively ping my machine, just like a server. And there's a blooper for next year. So, problem solved. Track uptime as a metric. Here's some uptime. I just grabbed this before. This is my computer over a few days. So it's not even my computer. It's someone else's computer. You can see the computer name's changed here. So we can see that the computer was on, and then it was shut down, and then it was on, and it was shut down. This is a shift worker computer. So at the end of the day, the shift changes. The new guy comes in. He starts the computer up from scratch. Then he leaves a few hours later and works from home the rest of the night. Then it's off, and then it turns on again. We see the pattern here has changed. They decided they wouldn't shut it down. So obviously, whoever was working these days shuts it down when he finishes, and then whoever worked these days doesn't. But what we can solve with this is the eternal problem that all IT help desks have to deal with. You never have to ask this question again. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Because you know if they have. You know if they've turned the computer off because the uptime metric will show you that they have been turning the computer off or if they've been leaving it running. So, it's important to, when you set out to do this, to plan how you will distribute the client configuration. So we use NSClient++, where you have only Windows computers. So it's easy for us. We have already a mechanism to push applications and files to computers. We just, in this case, we've used GPO. You can just, obviously, plenty of system management software, which most companies would have. And you can do it if you have just a basic login script as well. But one point would be never edit the files on the end user computers. Always distribute them from a central spot. Otherwise, you will never know what you've done. So you can mix passive and active checks if you want to achieve a solution that's for your environment. There's no problem with that. I wouldn't do it personally. You can deploy it in any number of ways. So this example here is cloud-based. We have a mobile fleet. We could go cloud-based. We haven't, but we could. Most of our computers in Australia, we have a mobile network, which is quite good, and we're able to actually connect through the mobile network directly inside our network without having to go through a VPN. But if you had a large mobile sales force who never actually connect to the corporate office, they do everything through the web, they use all online services, why not host it in Amazon Web Services, for instance? Would be a great place to host it. Go forward. Internal, this is how our network's configured. It's all inside. We have PCs rolling around the network, hooking up through our Wi-Fi access points. We've got wired-in computers. I've included a NCPA client here, but we don't really have any. Don't ask me, please don't ask me for help with NCPA. There's better people out there. And then you can even potentially put your Nagios server in a DMZ and have it, the remote clients report back through your firewall into your DMZ if you have a mobile fleet but don't want to use the cloud services. So the conclusion is that Nagios is a great PC monitoring solution. It's flexible, it's adaptive to changes, it powers decision-making processes for PC replacement, it allows for proactive fault resolution for end users, and it drives high-performance cultures in a business. And I guess the reason why I say that is that that's one of the things that we try and achieve in Southern Royal Water is a high-performance culture. So people get the impression that we are proactively trying to help them, not just sitting around, fiddling around in the back room, waiting for people to have problems. So, any questions?
So what are you doing to prevent people from disabling NSClient++?
Okay, so our fleet of PCs, no one is an administrator, no one has access to stop services. But you can have a check, I guess. If it's not reporting, you can actually create, well, in our case, we'll create a help desk ticket automatically through Nagios to say that this client hasn't reported in a period of time.
Okay, thanks.
You guys got me running one end of the room to the other. It's all right. That's right.
Yes. Have you started using the data to help drive decisions from an asset management perspective as far as who gets a refresh when?
Yeah, so that's obviously a goal of this program at the moment. As we roll this, so we haven't actually rolled this out to everyone's computers at this stage. We're targeting small work groups, making sure that it works right. Because our workforce does span a huge geographical area. It takes me 8 hours to drive to one of our offices, so we don't want to just roll it out everywhere and then find there's a problem and start again. But that is certainly one of the aims, and that's something that the management team and potentially the board will be very interested to see how we make decisions on who gets PCs refreshed more often. And potentially, as well, one of the things we've said is that whereas at the moment we do a 3-year replacement and we want to go to a 4 or possibly 5-year, we might actually do some people's in 2 years or 1 year if there's a demand, and then identify where those computers could be redistributed to. Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
One up front here.
With your tracking metrics passively, how do you handle a situation if you're automatically generating help desk tickets? How do you handle when staff go on annual leave and their devices don't connect for a month or so?
Yeah, so we're not at the moment creating the ticket if they don't report. So it's something that could be done, and there would be obviously, like, if someone's on annual leave, it would be a problem.
And also, what about if devices are stolen?
If the device is stolen, yeah. So in our case, the device is stolen, it wouldn't report back at all, and we wouldn't see it on there anymore. If you were using a cloud-based solution, potentially you could actually try and track your computer down. You would know the IP address where it's connecting from and potentially be able to do something about it. Yeah. If you're using active checks, heaven forbid, over the internet with a cloud solution, you might even be able to shut the computer down and wipe it remotely using NSClient, potentially. Yeah. Any other questions? You are welcome to ask about my beer if you want.
Do you use the network analyzer piece to monitor broadband usage in your offices?
We don't use, when you say the network analyzer, you're talking about the Nagios product?
Yes.
We don't use the Nagios product for it, but we have something similar that we use. We also have McAfee web access gateways on site, which push their logs back. Now they push it back to Nagios log server. So we could potentially use that to track how much web usage is going on and create, entries in Nagios for that. Any other questions? Yeah, one more. All right. You're going to ask about the beer? Oh.
Drink it.
Oh, no, this is actually, I made this.
All right, so wait, so let me officially ask, so it's on the tape then. So tell me about the beer.
This is my homebrew. Open source community, I thought always we're into homebrew, and this is my homebrew. I made it. It looks beautiful. I took the photo as well. It was delicious.
Yo, what's the name?
Well, I called it Stratford Sunshine because I live in a town called Stratford, and it was a sunny day. So I called it Stratford Sunshine, and it was delicious, and it didn't last very long at all. I didn't fire it off alert when it was empty. I don't remember when it was empty. It was quite strong. Yeah.
So I have a second question then. So now that you know about the Nagios log server,
Yep.
do you anticipate using that in your environment?
I have it deployed already. I was actually doing a Splunk installation. We were testing Splunk. It was solving a problem. We were actually about to place the order, one of my staff got the quote for it the day the conference started. 7,500 Australian dollars for the basic license of Splunk. Not sure if I'm allowed to say that here, but that's what it costs. $4,500 American if I buy it from an American store, but in Australia it's 7,500. $1,000 roughly Australian for Nagios log server. The first thing I did was email my staff and tell them, deploy this. So they ran the VM up, I configured it from here, and did a really basic config, and I'm already collecting, because we changed IPs to the IP of the Splunk server, shut the Splunk server down, it's already collecting the stats. And I was looking at it just before, and it's looking quite promising. So,
Great, thanks.
no worries. If there's no other questions?
Any other questions?
So one more thing. It is easier to get a cute girl to smile on camera than it is to monitor your PC fleet. But it helps if she's your daughter.